Hi everybody, this is Rob Windsor, and in this SharePoint Developer walkthrough, I want to show you how to create and deploy a custom ASMX or SOAP-based web service in SharePoint 2010 or SharePoint 2013. Now I have this walkthrough posted to my blog, but I've had several people who've tried to go through it and have had issues, and they've posted questions in the comment section down below. So I thought I would go through the walkthrough here in this video and hopefully address any of the questions that the commenters had or that you might have if you're going through this walkthrough yourself. I originally wrote this walkthrough in 2011 against SharePoint 2010, but I'll be doing the demo using SharePoint 2013. The steps are almost exactly the same. There's only one small difference, which I'll note a little bit later on. All right, so I'll start by going to Visual Studio and creating a new SharePoint solution project. I'll create an empty project. We'll call this guy Web Service Demo. And then click OK. Now, to create the web service, I need to create what's called a farm solution, which deploys files out into the SharePoint system folders. Because I'm creating a farm solution, I cannot deploy this to SharePoint Online. So this demo or this process of creating the web service, deploying it to SharePoint, everything I'm going to be showing you will only work for SharePoint on premises, whether it's 2010 or 2013. I'll click Finish here. And then while that's being created, I'll come back to the walkthrough. And the first step is to create a folder which maps to the Layouts folder within the SharePoint system folders. That's where we're going to put our web service. So I'll come back to my project, right-click, choose Add Layouts Map Folder. So this folder here maps to the Layouts folder within the SharePoint system folders. We never want to deploy our custom files directly into the Layouts folder. So it also creates a subfolder, and Visual Studio just gives it the same name as the project. So this is where our web service will go. Coming back to the walkthrough, now we'll create the web service file. If we go to Visual Studio and say Add New Item, there isn't a choice anywhere within here for web service. So we'll create a text file, which will be fine, and we'll name it My Custom Service ASMX. So come back to Visual Studio, right-click on the folder underneath the Layouts folder, Add New Item, and then in the General section, we'll choose Text File, but we'll name this guy My Custom Web Service ASMX, and click Add. So this is the web service file. When we make a request in the browser or in our programs, we'll put the URL to that file. And then inside of this file, we want to put a directive which tells SharePoint which class implements the web service. So the directive I'm talking about looks something like this. So this is the name of the class, and this is the fully qualified name of the class with the namespace in front of it. And then we also need to put the name of the assembly that implements this class. So if I come back to Visual Studio and right-click here and choose Build, it's going to create a DLL, or the assembly. And that assembly is eventually going to go into the global assembly cache. So for .NET, to be able to find that assembly, we need to put what's called the fully qualified name or in here. Basically, we need to replace this token I've put in the walkthrough with the fully qualified name. So the question is now, how do we get this fully qualified name? We can use PowerShell to do it, and we can automate the process of calling PowerShell and getting that name by going or adding in an external tool into Visual Studio. And this blog post by Sahil Malik shows exactly how to do that. So we go create an external tool. We have it called PowerShell. We have it run this command from PowerShell, and then put the results of that into the output window. So I've linked to this blog post here in the walkthrough. And I can run that external tool, which I've already added, by going to Tools and then Strong Name. And then here in the output window, I get the fully qualified name of the assembly. So it's the assembly name, the version number, the culture supported, if it's culture specific. In this case, it's not. It's agnostic. So the culture is neutral. And this thing called the public key token. So now I can come back to the walkthrough, grab this directive here, paste it into my ASMX file, and then replace this token here with the fully qualified name I got by running the PowerShell command. So now when we navigate to the ASMX file, SharePoint or ASP.NET will know to go load up this assembly from the global assembly cache and then execute the code inside of this class. So now what we need to do is create the class. So I'll copy the class name to the clipboard. And I'll right-click on my Visual Studio project and choose Add Class. And then paste in the name here. Whoops, I forgot the last character. My custom web service. And then click Add. And then coming back to the walkthrough here. Here is the code for the class. So I'll just grab that to the clipboard and replace the code we have here. And we should get a squiggly. We do. I need to add an assembly reference to system.web.services to be able to resolve that namespace and these type names here. So I'll right-click on References, choose Add Reference. Now this dialog looks different than the one in the screenshot here, or the one in the screenshot, because this is Visual Studio 2010 and this is Visual Studio 2013. But the process is the same. We come down, we find system.web.services, we click on it, we click OK, and we make sure that that assembly reference has been added. Then I'll get rid of the squigglies over here. All right, so now we have our web service file. We have the class that implements that web service, so we can go ahead and deploy out our work to SharePoint. So I'll right-click and choose Deploy. All right, so Visual Studio has created our WSP, or our solution package. It's deployed it out into my developer environment, and now I can go try to navigate to our web service. So coming back to the walkthrough, we can see the URL I want to navigate to is the site URL plus _ layouts web service demo my custom web service.asmx. Now here's where things change from Visual Studio 2010, or sorry, SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. In SharePoint 2010, we have one set of system folders. So when I say _ layouts, it's the layouts folder that's mapped to the system folders for SharePoint 2010. In SharePoint 2013, we can have 2 or 3 sets of system folders. One for SharePoint 2010, one for SharePoint 2013, and potentially one for SharePoint Online. So we need to indicate which system folder or which layouts folder we're going to talk to. The one for SharePoint 2010, the one for SharePoint 2013, or the one for SharePoint Online. And we do that by appending /14, 15, or 16 after layouts. So in my URL for SharePoint 2013, I'm going to have that number in there. If you were in SharePoint 2010, you don't have to worry about adding the number. So that's the one difference between this walkthrough in SharePoint 2010 and the walkthrough in SharePoint 2013. So I'll copy this part of the URL to the clipboard, come back to my SharePoint site, go to the SharePoint site URL, which is intranet.wingtip.com/site/demo, then _ layouts, 15 for SharePoint 2013, then web service demo, my custom web service.asmx. All right, I'll hit enter. And then what we should get is what's called the web service test page. So this is a page that's generated by ASP.NET, which gives us information about our web service and allows us to test out the service operations. So here I can get the service description or the WSDL for the service. This describes the service, the operations in the service, what their inputs are to the operations, what the outputs are, and so on. I can see the service operations. We just have one. It's called getSiteListCount. It's coming back to our class, getSiteListCount. And what this does is it goes to the current site, current SharePoint site, and finds out how many lists are in that site. So if I come back to here, the test page, I can click on that operation, and I can click Invoke to invoke that operation. Now, one thing you'll note when I do this is the URL here. Whoops. Do I not have my Zoom It tool? Shoot, I don't. Okay. But what this says is intranet.wingtip.com_layouts 15 web service demo, my custom web service. So you notice the site/demo is missing. It just navigates to the root site of the web application and then runs it from there. This is just how the test page works. It will work correctly when we go to consume this web service in a client application later on. Right? So if you're doing the test and you notice, oh, the URL is wrong here, it's okay. We're just making sure that the code is running correctly, and it is. Right? So if you can get this response, and you can get this page when you navigate to the web service, everything you're during your development process is working as expected. All right, so the next part of the walkthrough is to then create an actual client to consume this web service. So we're just going to create a console application. So let me start up another instance of Visual Studio. And then create a new project. And create a console application. We're not going to change the name. It doesn't really matter. And then what I want to do now is add a reference to the web service. So what I'm going to do is come back over here and grab the URL to the ASMX file. I'm going to right-click on References, choose Add Service Reference. Now this dialog is meant to add service references for WCF services, not SOAP services. To get the dialog to add a reference to a SOAP service, we click Advanced, and then Add Web Reference. And then here we put in the URL to our ASMX file. All right, I'll hit Enter. It'll then go and show us the test page. And then it'll allow us to create what's called a service proxy. So if I come back to here, my walkthrough, there is talking about going to Advanced, Add Web Reference, putting in this, and I'm going to call the proxy Demo Proxy. All right. So I'm going to change the name here to Demo Proxy. Click Add Reference. So what happens at this point is Visual Studio goes and reads the WSDL document associated, or the service description document associated with the web service. And then it builds a class file, which you can see by clicking on Show All Files here in the Solution Explorer. And then navigating underneath Demo Proxy and then reference.map. This is the proxy file. All right. So basically, this is the code we can use to call out to our web service from our application. Okay. So now I've come back to the walkthrough. I have the code we need here to call out to a service. So I'll grab that to the clipboard and replace the code that was given to us by Visual Studio. And I need to make a couple small changes here. One is I need to add in either the using statement or the fully qualified name for Demo Proxy. So I'll just do that by clicking on Demo Proxy, clicking Control Dot, and then adding in console application 3 Demo Proxy in front of that. And then I need to change here the URL to the site we want to test. So this was the original server site URL I had when I created this walkthrough the first time. That's changed. Now our site name is blogs.msv. Nope, sorry, not that one. It's intranet.wingtip.com/site/demo. And I need that trailing slash there. So I'll come back over here and replace this part of the URL with that. And then also remember I'm in SharePoint 2013, so I need to have the 15 as part of the URL here. All right, so what this will do is it'll create the service proxy. It'll say the URL to the service. And this is important with this type of web service because it is this piece of the URL which provides the web service the context in which we're going to run. So if I want to run this web service for this site, I give it this fully qualified URL. If I wanted to run for a different site, so maybe instead of demo, I want to run it for, I don't know, HR, then I put site/HR, right? So this is how the web service knows the context in which to run, is by the URL to the service. And then finally, I tell SharePoint to attach my credentials to the call so SharePoint can authenticate me when I make this web service call. Then we're going to call the getSiteListCount operation on the service and then write out the response. All right, so if I do Control F5 to run this, we should see that the demo site contains 27 lists. Right, and again, if I wanted to run this for a different site, I would just change this. So let's run it for the root site in our web application, just intranet.wingtip.com, Control F5, and now we should see this has 18 lists, so it has less lists. All right, so this completes the process of developing and testing our web service in our developer environment. Now I want to deploy this out to another environment to make sure that the service is working expected after deployment. So I come back to my SharePoint project. I can right-click on the project and choose Open Folder in File Explorer. So that will take me to where my Visual Studio project lives in my on my hard drive. And then if I go to bin debug, and I'm choosing debug because I built this in debug mode. If I built this in release mode, then it would be bin release. And here is the WSP, or the solution package, that I need to deploy out to the other environment to get my web service and the assembly that implements the web service onto that other environment, whether it's QA or staging or production. Okay, and if I make a copy of this WSP file, it's actually a cabinet file, which is kind of like a zip file. And if I just open that up, there we can see the DLL that's going to get put into the global assembly cache. And there we can see the ASMX web service file, which is going to get put into the SharePoint system folders. All right, so I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm going to copy this WSP to the other environment, and then I'll start the video up again. Okay, now we're over here in the other environment, and I want to ensure that our solution package has not been deployed. So there's a few ways I can do that. One is to go to the Layouts folder and see if our Web Service Demo folder is there. It's not. I can go to the Global Assembly cache and look for the Web Service Demo Assembly. It's not there. And I can also go to SharePoint Central Administration and then go to System Settings and Manage Farm Solutions. And I notice, sorry, not Farm Features, I want Farm Solutions. And I should notice that our Web Service Demo WSP is not there. So Web Service Demo has not been deployed into this environment. Now I've copied the package over. It's in my Downloads folder. It's right here. So I'm going to shift right click on this and choose Copy as Path to copy the fully qualified path to this file onto the clipboard. And then I am going to start up the PowerShell, SharePoint PowerShell. I'm going to run that as administrator. So deploying a package is a two-step process. The first one is we need to add the package into the SharePoint package store, which lives in the SharePoint configuration database. This cannot be done through SharePoint Central Administration. It needs to be done through PowerShell. And the command is add-sp solution, and then the fully qualified path to the solution file, which I had on the clipboard. So hit enter, and we can see that that has now added this into the solution store. And if I come over to Central Administration here, I can right-click and then choose refresh. And we can see now that this is here, but it's not been deployed. So deploying is the second part of the process. And I can do that either through the web interface here, or I can do it through PowerShell here. I'll do it through the web interface. I'll click Deploy Solution. It's going to ask me when do I want to deploy this. Doing a deployment normally resets the web application hosting SharePoint. So in a production environment, you want to schedule this at some time, in the middle of the night. But for my development environment or for this test environment here, it's fine to do it now. So I'll click OK. And it will take me back to here, this page. Now, when you deploy the first time, it's going to say deployed right away. Any subsequent deployment, it'll actually schedule a deployment, and it'll take usually 2 or 3 minutes before the deployment completes. So at this point, if I go back to the layouts folder, I should see there's our web service demo folder with our ASMX file inside of it. If I go to the global assembly cache, and let's see, I don't know how to refresh the global assembly cache. So they can just navigate there and navigate away and come down. Where is our assembly? It doesn't always show here. But our assembly has been added to the global assembly cache. I don't see it in this UI. And of course, we see here in Central Administration that our WSP has been deployed. So at this point, I should be able to go to any site within my SharePoint farm and go to, and I don't have that page loaded up, so I'll have to just remember this from memory. Or actually, I've been testing this before, so I'll just use the one on the here in the browser's memory. So it's Layouts 15, because I'm in SharePoint 2013, Web Service Demo, My Custom Web Service ASMX. There's our test page. All right. Now, over here in our other environment, let's go ahead and create a client. So I'll start up. I have Visual Studio 2012 on this machine. And while I'm waiting for that to load, I'll come back over here. And again, I'll grab this URL. And I'm probably going to need that code from my blog. So let me do a Google search. Rob Windsor, create custom ASMX SharePoint. Should give me where I want to go. Here, and then the code I'm going to need is down there. All right. Oh, no, it's not that code. It is that code. All right, so create a new project. And then create a console application. Right-click, add a service reference, click Advanced, click Add Web Reference, paste the URL to our web service into there, hit Enter, change the name here to Demo Proxy, click Add Reference, and then go grab the code from the walkthrough. And replace the code in this file with that code. And then change, first off, resolve that namespace. And then come back to here. grab the name of the site in this environment. Come back over here, paste it in. And also make sure we have the 15 because I am in SharePoint 2013. And then do Control F5 to run it. And there we can see demo contains 26 lists. Come back over to our demo site. And then let's add in a contacts list. So add an app. And our task list. I don't think I have a task list. Let's create a task list. That's easy. Call this guy tasks. Click create. Okay, and now back over to here, Control F5, and we should see there's 27 lists. All right, so this walkthrough, we've created the custom web service. We've deployed it within our developer environment. We've tested it. We've then deployed it out to another environment, created a client in that environment, tested it out. So again, if you were somebody who's asked a question within the comments, hopefully your question has been answered by walking through this video, or if you've gone through this the first time and you had any questions or things weren't clear, hopefully again this video does clear up any of those issues. So thank you for watching and have a great day.